At 2:14 a.m., the living room motion sensor went off. By 2:16, my 10-year-old son, still groggy from sleep, pressed the panic button under his bed, exactly as we had practiced. At 2:19, police officers had Patricia Garrison in handcuffs, tangled up in my blackout curtains, shrieking about emergency code compliance inspections. She had crawled in through the unlocked laundry room window. Her explanation? With complete seriousness, she said she had a hunch about unsanctioned LED bulbs. My name is David Mercer. I'm a widower who works in IT support for a regional bank. I don't host barbecues, I don't gossip at the mailboxes, and I don't mow the lawn every 3 days like the Maple Ridge HOA handbook passive-aggressively recommends. My house is quiet and private. My 10-year-old son Jake and I keep to ourselves, which apparently made us prime targets for Patricia Garrison, the self-appointed property aesthetics coordinator of Maple Ridge. She decided my family and our porch light were somehow a threat to community values. It began with notices slipped under my door at all hours. First, a warning about a non-compliant decorative gnome, which was actually a leftover Halloween skull I'd forgotten to put away. Then came a $75 fine for unsanctioned solar pathway lighting. The lights had been there when I bought the house 5 years ago, but Patricia insisted they violated subsection 12.4 of a lighting ordinance she had personally written, just the month before. She once rang my doorbell at 6:42 a.m. on a Saturday to scold me about what she called seasonally ambiguous wreaths. The wreath in question was a simple eucalyptus circle my late wife had made years ago. Another time, she attempted to enter my backyard, claiming she needed to measure my grass blades for compliance. When I ordered her to leave, she huffed dramatically and announced she'd return with proper documentation. She was often spotted crouching behind her hibiscus bushes with binoculars and a clipboard, whispering frantically into a walkie-talkie she insisted was directly connected to code enforcement. Later, the Code Enforcement Office confirmed they'd never heard of her, and certainly had not issued her any communication device. Then came the late-night incidents that truly alarmed me. My trash cans were mysteriously overturned every Tuesday night, spilling garbage across my driveway. My security camera cable was cut clean through with what looked like garden shears. That was when I decided to upgrade the entire system. Silent alarms on every entry point, infrared cameras with cloud backup, and most importantly, kid-level panic buttons in Jake's room and in the hallway. I trained Jake exactly what to do if anyone ever came inside uninvited. Press the button, lock the bedroom door, and hide in the closet. We practiced twice a week until it was second nature. Patricia's behavior escalated. After I refused to attend her mandatory neighborhood beautification seminar, she began showing up at odd hours, measuring my mailbox height at 11 p.m., photographing my garbage bins from multiple angles at dawn. She even tried to follow Jake home from the bus stop one afternoon, claiming she needed to inspect his backpack for contraband gum. That's when I filed my first police report, though they said there wasn't much they could do unless she actually trespassed on my property. The night everything changed began like any other. I put Jake to bed at 9:30, double-checked all the locks, and settled in to finish work emails. Around midnight, I heard Patricia's unmistakable voice next door, arguing with someone on the phone about the criminal lack of HOA enforcement in our neighborhood. I should have known she was working herself up. By 2 a.m., I was sound asleep, completely unaware that Patricia had decided she couldn't rest until she confirmed whether I was using a non-HOA-approved brand of laundry detergent. Yes, she actually cited that specific concern to the police later. She approached my house, dressed in all black, which she later claimed was standard inspection attire, carrying a flashlight, a laminated HOA rulebook, and a digital camera to document what she called inevitable violations. She tried the front door first, then each window along the side of the house. The laundry room window, unfortunately left unlocked after I'd aired out the room earlier, became her entry point. She slipped through like some kind of suburban raccoon on a mission, knocking over a bottle of fabric softener in the process. The living room motion sensor detected her immediately, sending an alert to my phone. But before I could even process it, Jake had already reacted. My brave little guy had been on high alert ever since the backpack incident. The moment he heard the distinctive beep of the motion sensor programmed to make a specific sound, he pressed that panic button without hesitation. The silent alarm instantly notified the police with our predetermined emergency code for home invasion. I rushed to Jake's room to make sure he was safe and locked in. Through the door, I calmly told him he'd done exactly the right thing and to stay put. Then I grabbed my phone to watch the security footage in real time. There was Patricia, creeping through my living room with her flashlight, actually photographing my coffee table magazines and muttering about unapproved reading materials. She moved into the kitchen, opened my refrigerator, and started taking pictures of its contents while making disgusted noises about my choice of non-organic milk. The police arrived in. Exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds later, officers entered through the front door I had just unlocked, weapons raised as they shouted for the intruder to reveal themselves. Patricia, startled by their sudden arrival, attempted to conceal herself behind my curtains, but ended up hopelessly tangled in the blackout fabric. As the officers freed her, she shrieked in a manic voice that she was conducting an emergency code compliance inspection and had every right to be there. She brandished her laminated rule book like it was a federal warrant. Once the police realized she wasn't a burglar, but rather an HOA board member playing spy, they called in a supervisor and began collecting statements. Patricia insisted she had implied consent to enter any property within HOA boundaries for inspection purposes. The senior officer calmly explained that HOA bylaws don't override criminal statutes and that breaking and entering remains a felony, regardless of what her booklet claimed. She argued, in a desperate tone, that she was only safeguarding property values and upholding neighborhood standards. The investigation revealed this wasn't her first offense. 3 other families had endured similar intrusions. The Johnsons had reported strange footprints in their garden and missing porch photos. The Thuins had found their shed mysteriously unlocked multiple times. Elderly Mr. Crawford had even caught her inside his garage, though he dismissed it at the time as a side effect of his medication. None of them had video evidence, but once Patricia's arrest spread through the neighborhood chat, they all came forward. I, however, had everything recorded in crystal clear, cloud-backed, high-definition footage. The video showed Patricia checking windows, sneaking through the laundry room, rummaging around my home, and even photographing supposed evidence of non-compliance. My attorney, whom I hired the next morning, said it was the most thorough record of breaking and entering he had ever seen. He actually laughed aloud at the clip where she became ensnared in my curtains. Within 48 hours, the media picked up the story. Local news aired the footage of Patricia crawling through my window under the headline, "HOA President or Unhinged Trespasser," a viral clip of her shouting, "This is my jurisdiction," while wrapped in curtains quickly spread online, turning into a TikTok audio used more than 3 million times in the first week. Her mugshot, hair once perfectly styled, but now a bird's nest from the curtain. Fiasco became a meme template for entitled people finally facing consequences. The HOA board held an emergency meeting 2 days later. Over 200 residents attended, most demanding Patricia's immediate removal and the repeal of her 23-page amendment to the neighborhood guidelines. The vote was unanimous, except for her husband, who abstained while staring at the floor. That very night, the HOA dissolved permanently, with members vowing never to reform it. Ironically, property values rose once prospective buyers discovered there was no HOA to deal with. Patricia's legal troubles were only beginning. She faced charges of breaking and entering, criminal trespass, unlawful surveillance, and child endangerment since Jake had been inside the house during her intrusion. Her attorney argued diminished capacity, claiming her obsession with neighborhood standards clouded her judgment, but the judge wasn't persuaded. With multi-angle security footage, a documented history of unauthorized entries, and Patricia's lack of remorse, the case against her was airtight. The trial lasted 3 days. Taking the stand, Patricia rambled for 40 minutes about aesthetic standards, portraying herself as a heroic figure protecting the community from chaos. She compared herself to neighborhood watch volunteers and claimed she was being punished for caring too much. The prosecutor simply replayed the footage of her photographing my refrigerator contents at 2:15 a.m. and then rested his case. Jake testified by closed-circuit video from another room. He explained how terrified he had been when the motion sensor tripped, how he pressed the panic button exactly as we had practiced, and how he hid in his closet until I assured him it was safe. Several jurors frowned when he mentioned he'd suffered nightmares ever since Patricia followed him home from the bus stop. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours before finding Patricia guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge highlighted her refusal to accept responsibility and the trauma she inflicted on multiple families, particularly the fear she caused a child. He sentenced her to 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and ordered $15,000 in restitution. Patricia's jaw dropped as the sentence was read. She whispered urgently to her attorney that this couldn't be happening because she had a neighborhood standards committee meeting the following week. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order. Patricia was barred from coming within 500 feet of my property or Jake's school. Additionally, she was prohibited for life from holding any position in any HOA, neighborhood association, or similar organization within the state. When that final restriction was read, she gasped, clutched the defense table, and flushed the exact shade of red as the non-compliant roses she once tried to fine the Johnsons for planting.